Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on a piece of internet magic that makes everything you do online feel instant, the Content Delivery Network, or CDN. We're going to break down what it is, why it's so important, and how it all actually works.
So let's start with a kind of weird question, right? Why would the speed of light, the fastest thing in the universe, be a problem for your website? Well, it turns out that when you're dealing with a global network like the internet, even the speed of light isn't quite fast enough. And that physical limit is the whole reason CDNs even exist.
Okay, think about it like this. Let's say your website's main server is sitting in New York. Now, if someone in Tokyo wants to see one of your pictures, that request has to physically travel thousands of miles through undersea cables all the way to New York, and then the picture has to travel all the way back. Even at light speed, that trip takes time. And that delay, that travel time, has a name: latency. And at the end of the day, high latency is what makes a website feel slow, sluggish, just frustrating. Every single image, every video has to make that long journey. So how do we get around the literal laws of physics? Well, we don't. We just work smarter.
To really get how this works, let's forget about tech for just a second and talk about something a little more delicious. I call it the local bakery solution.
This analogy is just perfect. Imagine there's one incredible bakery in the entire country that makes the best croissants. Now, if you lived on the other side of the country, you'd have to travel for hours just to get one. But what if that bakery opened up local franchises in every single city? Suddenly, you can get that exact same fresh croissant just around the corner. It's way faster, it's super convenient, and the main bakery doesn't get totally swamped. A CDN does exactly that, but for your website's data. And check it out, this analogy maps almost one-to-one with the real tech. Your original bakery, that's your main web server, which we call the origin server. Those local franchise bakeries, each one is what's called a point of presence, or a POP for short. And that tasty croissant, well, that's your content, your images, your videos, all that good stuff. It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful.
All right, so with that bakery idea locked in, let's dive back into the tech and trace the actual journey of a user's request. How does this all happen in practice?
So, the heart and soul of any CDN is this huge, globally distributed network of servers. We call them points of presence, or POPs. You'll also hear them called edge servers, which is another key term. Just think of them as those local bakery branches, but they're powerful servers strategically placed in data centers all over the world, just waiting to hand out your content. So what happens the very first time somebody asks for a file? Let's say a user in London requests an image. Their browser is smart, so it sends the request to the nearest POP, which is also in London. But since this is the first time anyone's asked for it, the POP doesn't have a copy. In the lingo, this is called a cache miss. No big deal. The POP just turns around, goes all the way back to your main origin server, grabs the image, and this is the important part. It saves a copy for later before sending it to the user. Yeah, that first trip takes a little bit longer. But, and this is the entire point of the whole system, what happens for the next person who comes along? For that second user, maybe someone just down the road in Manchester, it's a completely different story. Their request also goes to that London POP, but this time, the POP has the image ready to go, saved in its local storage, its cache. This is what we call a cache hit. The POP serves the file directly to the user instantly. It never has to talk to the origin server again. The trip is short, the latency is super low, and the delivery is just blazing fast. Now, you can probably see why this system is an absolute game changer for what we call static content. These are all the files that don't really change from user to user. We're talking about your images, your videos, the CSS files that make your site look good, and the JavaScript that adds all the interactivity. Since they're the same for everyone, they are the perfect candidates to be copied and stored at the edge, close to all your users. Okay, so now that we get how it works, let's quickly break down the why. What are the 4 huge benefits you get from using a CDN? Number 1, and the most obvious, is way lower latency. By closing that physical distance between your content and your user, you slash that round-trip time. And the result is simple: a website or an app that just feels snappy and responsive, no matter where someone is in the world. Second, you get a massive reduction in the load on your main server. Think about it. If those POPs are handling 90% of the requests for heavy stuff like images and videos, your origin server is freed up to do what it's actually supposed to do: run your application logic. This means better stability, and honestly, it can save you a ton of money on hosting bills. Benefit number 3 is higher availability. Because a CDN is distributed all over the world, there's no single point of failure. If one of those POPs in, say, Frankfurt goes down for maintenance, who cares? The network just automatically and seamlessly reroutes traffic to the next closest one, maybe in Paris or Amsterdam. For your users, your site just stays online, it just works.
And finally, number 4, enhanced security. A lot of modern CDNs act like a giant protective shield for your website. They can absorb huge attacks, like a DDoS attack, right at the edge of the network. That malicious traffic gets filtered out long before it ever gets a chance to even touch your main server.
But you might be thinking, there's a piece of magic we've skipped over. When a user in London and a user in Tokyo both go to the exact same URL, how on earth does the internet know to send them to 2 completely different servers?
Well, the secret ingredient here is something called DNS, the domain name system. The way it works is you point your URL, like cdn.mysite.com, to your CDN provider. Then, when a user's browser goes to look up that address, it doesn't talk to a regular, dumb DNS server. It gets directed to the CDN special DNS server, which has a superpower. It can figure out the general location of the user making the request, and it intelligently responds with the IP address of the POP that's geographically closest to them.
And this clever technique has a name. It's called GeoDNS routing. For any senior engineers out there, this is a really important concept in system design. It's the core mechanism that makes this whole global traffic directing dance possible, ensuring every single user gets connected to their local franchise.
So let's wrap this all up. Here are the key takeaways you need to remember. A CDN's core job is to crush latency by caching content closer to users. The key players are the edge servers, or POPs, and your main origin server. It is best used for static assets like images and JavaScript. The main benefits are a huge boost in speed, less load on your server, better reliability, and a nice layer of security. And the invisible magic that makes it all work, that's GeoDNS routing.
We've seen how CDNs have totally mastered the game of delivering static content. But that leaves us with one really interesting question to think about. What do you do when the content can't be the same for everyone? What happens when it needs to be dynamic and personalized for every single user? Well, that's where this whole world gets even cooler, and it leads us into things like edge computing. But that is a story for another time. Thanks for watching.